Hey, good morning, all. Welcome to the Common Good Podcast. It's Tuesday. We can talk a little bit of politics around here.
Hey, Doug.
15th. Yes, sir.
Oh, there you go. Your audio is a little messed up there.
Yeah, Dan was saying that happens every now and again when eCam starts. It gets garbled. So I'll start again. Hey, welcome to the Common Good Podcast. It's Tuesday, February 15th, and that means we get to talk, not because it's February 15th, but because it's Tuesday, we get to talk about politics around here. Doug Pagitt, somewhere outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota, hunkered down in the basement of resistance to the insurrectionists that want to run our country, and joined by, working in the background, Dan Dietrich outside of South Bend, Indiana, and then somewhere in library-filled room, Robb Ryerse.
Hey there. It's good to see everybody today. Hope you're doing well. We are kind of in the middle of what feels like the longest month of the year. It's such a weird thing, February, that it's the shortest month of the year, and yet it feels like the longest. I saw it might have been I can't remember if it was a comedian or a meme or something. No. I know what it was. It was a news report out of St. Louis. A cheeky reporter decided to do a little bit of reporting on February, and he talked about how you think February is going to be a great month because of Valentine's Day and those kinds of things, but February typically, not this year, but typically has Ash Wednesday in it, and he said only February could invent a holiday that reminds us that we're going to die.
You're going to die. Welcome to your life. You're going to die.
Yes.
Take account. Well, I think February just suffers from short month syndrome, and it's always trying to outdo itself. So its weather is all over the place. It wants to get a little attention, so it puts love in there, and then it's a little death. It works really hard. It's a hard working holiday because it's the shortest of the hard working month because it's the shortest of all the months.
Yeah. Well, we've got quite a show today. We've got a special guest, a really amazing congressional candidate named Marcus Flowers, who is attempting to unseat Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia. So we're going to be talking with him in a little bit. Got some stuff to talk about, Doug. But since it's February, can we start by playing a little game? I want to play a little game.
Sure. I think games are fun. Is this going to be Wordle-like? Is it going to catch on all over the country? People are going to grab their phones and say, "I want to play with the Common Good Podcast on Tuesdays."
Yeah. And those of you that are watching live, would love for you to jump into the comments and answer these questions as well. Play along with us. I've got some questions for you, Doug. This game is all about: did you watch? Are you paying attention to?
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So, just to take a gauge of where people are at. There's big things happening in the world. Play a little game of did you watch? Are you paying attention to? So we'll start off with: did you watch? Are you paying attention to the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Big day.
I watched the second half. I watched halftime. Thought it was the best halftime in the history of halftimes.
How does it compare to last year with Jennifer Lopez and Shakira?
I think that was 2 years ago.
Oh, might have been.
I think
last year was the weekend.
We were on a bus, and I remember Mia Pace loving that as much as I did. So I was with Mia. So it was 2 years ago. Look, it was. We went on and on about this yesterday, Dan and I, breaking it down nearly song by song. It was just great. I thought it was spot on, really, really fabulous. I don't follow football, sort of just out of lack of interest, and I think it's a violent sport that just caters to the worst sides of American culture. But I do watch championships for whatever reason. So I watched the Super Bowl and I watched the second half, and thought it was rather typical boring football game. But then at the last minute, heroics by that Cooper Kupp, one of the great names, one of the great names of all time. And congratulations to the people who root for the team that's paid by the owner that reaps the revenues from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That's how I refer to NFL teams as,
who ripped the heart off out of St. Louis by taking the team to LA. But kind of sensitive to those kinds of things as a Cleveland Browns fan who had that happen to me. So you paid attention a little bit. You watched. Okay. Second question. Did you watch? Are you paying attention to the Olympics?
I'm not. We get a lot of Winter Olympics news in the state that I live in, Minnesota, because our people tend to do winter activities well at a world class level. But no, I have not watched a moment of it yet. I've wondered what's been going on in the skiing and shooting competitions. So I've had to just pick that up. How about you? Are you watching it?
Yeah, I have thought several times. I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and I have thought several times. Whimsy would love the Olympics. Like the figure skating and the luge, and all that stuff. Haven't watched a second of it.
What do you think that is? Why?
I very rarely watch live television to begin with, with the exception of sports, so I think, I don't have a routine of sitting down and turning on the TV, in the evening when it would be broadcasting,
Nice.
So I think that's part of it. And then
you're looking at your phone on those evenings. You're working on a whittling set in the basement. You're learning to play the viola. What are you doing in the evening?
Yeah. Well, I might be working on projects. Got a little NFT thing going on, and
NFTs. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, if you watch live sports, you would have known that they want your money in the crypto NFT world, because
yes,
you are going to make a lot of money if you get into that. It's not because they need your money to be chumming their water. It's because you're going to make a lot of money.
Did you like the Coinbase ad during the Super Bowl that was just the QR code?
I didn't see it. I heard about it.
It's fantastic.
I apparently it worked so much so they had to slow down their website servers because they got overwhelmed. It's it's like the old commercial that was on during the Super Bowl about launching your website and crashing the internet.
Yeah. And then the other thing I had watched maybe a year ago, I had watched a really fascinating documentary on Netflix about doping and in cycling, and then it kind of spills over into the Olympics, and it was fascinating, and it made me think that the whole thing is pretty much a sham. So kind of turned me off. So interesting stuff. So third and final question, Doug, did you watch, are you paying attention to World War III?
Apparently not. I didn't know that it was coming, unless this is the Ukraine.
Are we on the brink of World War III? And the reason I ask is I'm pretty plugged into what's happening in the news. I'm pretty plugged into the political world and the implications of that. I have no idea what's happening with the Ukraine and Russia and why we're involved and what's going on. I have seen headlines and I just scroll right on by them. I haven't read an article. I haven't watched a clip. I don't know. I feel like I don't care. I have this sense that we are on the brink of World War III, and I have consumed about as much of it as I have consumed the Olympics.
And you know more about NFTs, which might not even be real, than the very real World War III that is coming. It is the plight of many of us. Look, the reason it's interesting to Americans is because we care about democracies in other parts of the world being taken over by hostile actors who have a grudge against democracy. So that would be a reason. And it's a pretty good reason. The global society needs certain roles to be filled. The United States fills one of those roles. We should be paying attention for sure. That's a thing. Russia's intentions around this are apparently mixed and unclear to many people, short of they want to renegotiate a lot of things that happen. One of the things, and as we are incredibly able to do around here, is to lay this at the footstool of Donald J. Trump, twice impeached and failed presidential candidate, because he pulled out of a long-standing intercontinental ballistic missile deal. And because they pulled out of that, that has reopened the negotiations. And that seems to be something that Putin wants to renegotiate. So there's a relationship with Ukraine and Ukraine's participation in NATO. Putin doesn't want NATO to recognize Ukraine as one of its members, because then it comes to the support. And he also wants to start renegotiating some of these things that were opened up and wants to get back to a sort of weakened NATO world, and is trying to challenge NATO. So the same goals that Donald Trump had, which was to weaken NATO, is the same goal that Putin has. This is why it's interesting. I think the reason the press cares about it is because anything that's going to make Biden look like he's not doing well on the international stage, like happened in Afghanistan, is a real strike against one of his strengths and one of the strengths of his team.
Why do you think the press would be interested in that?
Well, because then it becomes a major news story in the United States because of its implication on the presidency. I don't think the press has a bone to pick against Biden any more than they did any other president. The press is the press. I'm just saying it has great consequence that the press cares about, because if Biden looks really incompetent to handle this, then it plays out. And look, anything that involves Russia or China is going to get attention. Anytime you put 100,000 troops on another country's border that you have invaded previously, that's going to catch somebody's attention. Rarely do I think Lindsey Graham was right, and I don't think he was right again on Sunday, but he did say something that I thought was interesting. He said, shouldn't we be punishing Putin for the provocation and not just for the action? Which is an interesting point. Like, shouldn't there be a deal in societies about such things? But look, I mean, no one cares about international affairs, and the Ukrainians that I know aren't worried about this. And the Ukrainians in the United States, they're like, oh, this is not the thing. Putin's a real troublemaker in Ukraine. He's not going to invade Ukraine. And if he does, it's going to be a show. He's going to back out, and it's going to be pounding a bunch of sand somewhere. And, it's that kind of thing. So whatever all is going on, the Trump administration muddled up everything, including a bunch of international affairs. And that's what I think is the ramifications of all of this, is that Putin's playing a long game that has to do with renegotiating intercontinental ballistic missile deals. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's two things that come to mind for me. One is I feel like I now, before this conversation, the extent of my kind of engagement and knowledge of this was just that sense that Ukraine is really hard to hold when you're playing Risk. Like that. So I feel like I've got a better sense of, where we're at now. The other thing is,
I need you to do us a favor, though. I mean, just remember the other impeachment thing that Trump went through.
Well, this is what I'm getting to.
Related to Ukraine. So
yes, there's so much political stuff related to Ukraine. The impeachment of Donald Trump, where he is calling on the Ukrainian leader to do an investigation of Joe Biden. There's all of this Hunter Biden stuff and his laptop and the relationship that exists with people in the Ukraine and bad actors. And so it feels like there is some element of political scandal that, if there's conflict in the Ukraine, keeps that political scandal kind of bubbling below the surface and popping through every once in a while. But it feels like much of the criticism of Joe Biden is unfounded conspiratorial stuff, while the criticism of Donald Trump and his relationship with Ukraine actually led to his impeachment. There is something there.
I think you have to be pretty deep into politics to have remembered that Ukraine was also the center of Trump's phone call, which led to the impeachment. In fact, if you ask people, was Donald Trump impeached? They would tell you yes. If you ask them the conditions of what led to that, they might say maybe they knew that he pressured. If they knew that he pressured someone and tried to use his office for political gain,
They would think it was Stormy Daniels. Right.
that they Michael Avenatti, that it was Ukraine, and that same is the same Ukraine. I mean, you're talking about just a sliver of people who are paying attention to this stuff. So it's again something that obviously needs to be important. It gets a ton of press. Like if you follow the press that I follow, I don't watch a lot of conservative press, but on their audio or video or television broadcasts, but I see their print stuff, and it's barely registering, over there. So I just think this is something that should come and go, right? Like this is we're kind of back to normal presidential politics stuff, outside of the fact that in the news, Donald Trump's accounting company, the company that's held his records and is verified for his taxes, has fired his company as their client, has said the records that we signed off on for the last decade, we now believe are no longer accurate. We now know things about their inaccuracy, and we're done, and we're removing our certification of those records. That is a big deal. So he is now in a situation where the personal life of Donald Trump and the business life are going to start colliding with the popular news in a whole different way. This is a big one. So that was a thing that just happened yesterday, and that's the kind of thing that's going to get people interested. It almost doesn't matter about international affairs. I mean, short of something in Israel, people in the United States just don't focus their minds around it and really seemingly care about it, and Biden has been perfectly clear. We're spending zero money and zero lives on what's going on in Ukraine. Like he's got a very stand back approach to that, which is a little shocking. You could have imagined that there was a more interventionist attitude when it comes to the political order, but apparently that's not the case.
Yeah.
So does that end our DYWAY, Pat?
It does.
Okay.
I like the fact that you wrote that down so you could hit it.
DYWAY, Pat is a wrap.
Did you watch? Are you paying attention to?
Did you watch? Are you paying attention to? Well done. Hey, did you watch or are you paying attention to what AOC said about what's going on?
Always.
Paleo, your running partner.
For people who might not know, I got to know AOC when she was just Alex, and I actually remember the first time I met her. We were together for some candidate training. We were both running for Congress, and she won. I didn't. And we spent a couple of days. There were 5 of us that spent a couple of days together working on some stuff. And I came home and I said to my wife, I just met the future president of the country. And then to prove that I'm not making this up, there is proof. We were at an event in DC, and Alex was having fellow candidates sign the inside of her one of her books by Bernie Sanders, and I signed it as the chairperson of the Ocasio-Cortez for President Exploration Committee. I have been enamored with Alex for really since the moment I met her. She's a unique political character whose charisma is just I have never in person met anyone like her. So yeah, of course I'm paying attention to whatever she does, including saying that the inner workings of Congress is are we allowed to say bad words on this podcast? We're going to get like in iTunes, we're going to get an explicit tag.
We already got shadow boxed by Facebook today, saying that they're going to take our whole page down because We violated something. They don't tell you what. They just say, because of, they say, we take down pages and yours is one that we're going to do this unless you tell, unless you tell us not to, for misleading content. Okay. Graphic violence, hate speech. No. Harassment and bullying. No, I think Donald Trump may have sent a
he's reported us.
Yeah.
So anyways, AOC called the inner workings of Congress a shit show. Basically said that anybody who's paying attention in DC should be scandalized by what happens in Congress. And frankly, like, she thinks the people that are in Congress who aren't scandalized by it. And she's talking about the inner workings of how bills get passed, what relationships are like, who has influence, who has power, basically the politics of the politics. She says it's worse than we imagine, and wishes that that Democratic leadership, in her words, had the stones to move forward on bold, transformative things instead of just taking small steps like infrastructure while ignoring the Build Back Better Act and worrying just about their reelection rather than making changes in the country that we need to make. So Alex kind of calling out Democratic leadership.
And good for her. Fair enough. Says every congressperson elected in 1990. Yeah, it's been like this for a while. Mm-hmm. Right. So it is. But look, the way you change institutions is to change the players in the institutions. Yes. So that's what we do around here. We want to have different people in Congress. Some people I think should stay. AOC should stay. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a representative from Georgia. Well, she is, like everybody, a beloved child of God, light of the world, salt of the earth, all that. She should not be a representative in Congress from the state of Georgia. And I think Marcus Flowers ought to be. So we're really glad that Marcus is with us today. And the only way we're going to see change in those kinds of situations is to see this change. So, Marcus, thank you for being on the Common Good podcast, man. So good to see you, and congratulations, and thanks for running.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure to serve, as always. Having served this country for almost 30 years, I can't think of a better way to serve, and that's getting Marjorie Taylor Greene out of Congress. But how are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
Well, you're welcome. Hey, we think the same thing. I remember years ago when Marjorie Taylor Greene came on the scene. We talked about it on this podcast. In fact, she was talked about as one of those candidates that's running for Congress and is into QAnon. And I said, that can't possibly be right. Like, maybe she thought something, like, I did a little without knowing, just saying to myself, this isn't, for 2020 or whatever, 2018. Like, people can't be into this stuff and be running for Congress. There's no way any serious person could.
Right.
Like, so many things, I was so wrong. And not only did she still does on a regular basis. And normally we don't say, hey, run for Congress because you just want to run the other person out of their job. But in this case, that seems like a really important thing to do. I know you have other agenda items for being when you become the next congressman, but this congresswoman's got to go. She's just she's really damaging to the well-being of this country, it seems to me.
I mean, absolutely. I became aware of QAnon and those things just like the rest of the country did, that summer that George Floyd was murdered. And I kept hearing that disinformation, misinformation campaign growing louder and louder. And, I came across Marjorie Taylor Greene because she was running to be our next representative after Tom Graves retired. She switched districts from 6, where she would have, may have ended up in a general election fight against Lucy McBath, which would have gone nowhere. But when you saw that opportunity, she bounced into the Republican primary and self-funded against someone who, hadn't raised a lot of money. And she was able to, just communicate all over the district. And, people who didn't really look into her background like I did, didn't see all of the crazy conspiracy theories. And, I was pointing that out to people. This is someone who said 9/11 was a hoax, at the time when I was looking at all of this. And I'm like, I was actively serving our country on 9/11. I was on an air base in Europe, watching our fighter jets go up 2 at a time. And she's talking about the Pentagon not being hit by an airplane. And it's
Yeah.
just, it was ridiculous, some of the things that I was seeing. And so, you know, I reached out to her before then. She had also made some disparaging remarks about black and brown people. I
Yep.
reached out to her and say, hey, walk some of those things back. Surely you know that 9/11 wasn't a hoax. Surely you know that the Parkland massacre was not a hoax or staged. But, crickets from her. And then, she further, kept her antics just kept going on and on. So,
Keep
for the
happening.
first time in my life, I really got involved in politics. I was a government official at the time, bound by Hatch Act, so I couldn't get too involved or be too outwardly political. But I started helping the Democrat, who was running against her. But unfortunately, because of, some of the really, really far right radicals, scared him off, and he dropped out of the campaign, and she ran unelected. So that was unfortunate for our district. And since she's been elected to office, she's continued to espouse those
Yes.
really, really radical beliefs. And that's just having talked to some members on both sides of the House up on the Hill and some senators, they all feel, and these are some of her Republican colleagues I'm talking
Yep.
about, they all feel that she is a true believer and that she is dangerous. And I feel that exact same thing. We got to remember that democracy is on the ballot here, and that's what we're fighting for, the
Yeah.
soul of our nation.
Well, look,
Yeah,
and I think you're uniquely set for this, because all the things I think are dangerous about the ideology and the words and the antics and actions of Marjorie Taylor Greene, which are really severely dangerous for anybody with any public confidence, but especially for a congressperson in this particular setting.
Oh, absolutely.
She is a shockingly compelling person. So people tend to not sift through politics or even what's been said in the past like a lot of us do. That's not how politics works.
Right.
She has an energy. She has a charisma. She can turn that camera straight to her face and talk directly to people. And she raises a lot of money. So sometimes you need a unique candidate who can also be a charismatic person and kind of meet that same energy. Not everyone can do that. Not everybody's good at that. You, though, Marcus Flowers, you've got that energy. I don't know. Can we show your campaign video? Because it is great. It shows you. I think it matches your energy really well. Is that okay with you if we show that? Are you
Well,
willing
if you
to
insist.
Yeah.
All right, watch this.
I'm Marcus Flowers, and I've spent my life serving this country in combat zones across the world. But I never thought I'd see one here in the United States.
Q is a patriot. We know that for sure.
That's Marjorie Taylor Greene's America.
Marjorie Taylor Greene expressed support for executing Democratic members of Congress.
Taylor Greene said that a plane did not hit the Pentagon on 9/11.
Her twisted conspiracy theories may have made her famous, but they haven't done a damn thing to help the people here in our district. Now I'm running for Congress because Georgians deserve better. Better health care, COVID relief, and real representation. My childhood wasn't easy. When I was 11, I moved into a children's home because my parents couldn't support me. So I learned to deal with bullies at an early age. At 18, after graduating high school, I joined the Army. My first overseas deployment was at an intelligence listening post in Central Europe on the doorstep of communism. I spent a decade in combat zones in Iraq and Afghanistan as a contractor for the Department of Defense and held top secret security clearance. I witnessed firsthand the damage done by extremism, radicalism, and disinformation. And I won't stand by while people in Washington take us down the same path. The Army Corps values teach honor, personal courage, and selfless service. That's what I'll bring to Congress. I hope you'll join me on my next mission.
We have a chance to see a lot of announcement videos. Look at you, Doug.
I thought you had that on today, and I said I'm busting out my cowboy hat.
I like it.
Yeah. We see a lot of campaign videos, launch videos. That's become a really effective tactic of introducing a candidate to their constituents and to the country as a whole. And Marcus, yours is just it's one of those ones that makes me want to run through a wall. It just gets it's great in terms of of getting us excited. So tell us a little bit more about about your biography and what connects you with the people in. I mean, this district is pretty rural, right? Rural Georgia. So tell us what helps connect you with the folks that you want to represent in DC.
Well, it's mostly rural, but we have parts of Metro Atlanta in the district. And I'm originally from Troy, Alabama, the birthplace of John Lewis. So John Lewis was one of my idols, and I watched everything that he did and stood for, and how he fought for equality and voting rights. And I thought that this was this is a man of moral courage and fortitude, and just to stand up to a system that oppressed our people for so long. And he fought that, and he lived that, and everyone who knew him could see that in him. He was just a honest, good person. I grew up in poverty, so my family, like many families throughout our district and throughout our country, quite frankly, we face some seriously tough challenges. And I did end up in a children's home for a little while in Talladega, Alabama, which is right up against the district. But we came through it, and with faith in God, my life improved. At 18 years old, I joined the military. I swore that oath to support and defend the Constitution. That's what I've been doing for the last almost 30 years. Is as a soldier, defense contractor, and government official, America's been my life. Service to this country has been my life, and my connection to this district. My father taught in this district for 30 years before he died.
Right.
He was a high school teacher right here in the district. Taught generations of kids the industrial arts, and technical things, how to build things, their houses, and all kinds of things. So my family was all about service. My granddaddy was a sheriff and a farmer in rural Alabama. My uncles were police captains. I had uncles who served in the military. My sister teaches in the district. I had a mother who ran for mayor at one point in time.
Wow.
Here in the district.
Yeah, there you go.
Just a sense of service is something that kind of runs in the blood, I guess you could say. But, watching what's been going on, here in our country lately, and the misinformation and disinformation that's out there, having spent a decade in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, having been to places like Sudan doing humanitarian efforts and the Balkans on peacekeeping missions. When I say I've seen the damage done by extremism and radicalism, that's not rhetoric. That's what I've actually seen, and I know the damage is done. I've lost friends overseas in wars, and to suicide bombers, to vehicle-borne IEDs, and things like that. And that's that doesn't happen in a vacuum. Marjorie Taylor Greene and those people who are spouting these dangerous conspiracy theories and these really far right talking points, they have radicalized and infected America, infected a significant portion of Americans with that type of disinformation. That is what I'm talking about when I talk about those dangers of extremism, radicalization, and disinformation. We can do better. These culture wars, that doesn't fix a bridge. That doesn't help your schools. That doesn't help healthcare. I want to work on kitchen table issues that Georgians actually care about. And I'm out on the doors every day talking to people, and I'm finding out what it is that they're worried about. They're worried about inflation. Jobs are doing great right now. Democrats are delivering. We're getting so many shots in arms right now. Hopefully we can get on the other side of this pandemic and, get back to some sense of normalcy, whatever that's going to look like going forward. But culture wars isn't going to get us there. And that's all Marjorie Taylor's doing. She can't be effective because she doesn't sit on any committees. So she's not steering any dollars to our community to help us. So I'm working with local business leaders, mayors, police departments, different organizations here in Northwest Georgia to see what I can do once I get into Congress to help Georgians right here on the ground fix our problems that we have here. That's the job. Constituent services, being held accountable.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Does none of that.
That's we've been hearing that. Those of us who paid attention to her behavior, even though she's not our congresswoman, we've been paying attention to her behavior. And you hear this from people in the district that constituency services are also not going well.
They're not going at all. I'm sorry, they're not going at all. She's not doing anything.
There you go. Better said. we were just talking about, some of the people who were elected to Congress in 2018 and 2020, they kind of wake up and they look around as Congress people and be like, wow, this is even more stagnant than I thought. You're not stepping into this without your eyes open. You've done public service. You've worked on the front edge of where, the government interacts with people's lives. Congress is a place where you are sort of a bit removed from that, where you're creating a context, where you're setting laws and you're setting agendas and you're doing constituency services and so on. But oftentimes people who are congressmen and women feel powerless to really accomplish the things that that drove them to do this in the first place. So you're wide awake on that, right? You've taken both of these things into account. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why does Marcus Flowers say, what I want to do for the next term and 2 terms and 10 terms, however long it is, maybe a John Lewis amount of time. Why do you think that the best place for you to be is in that particular role in the legislative branch of the federal government, as opposed to the other things that you've been doing up until this point?
So let me take you back to, my background as far as my military service as a defense contractor and a government official, logistics and compliance. And compliance is just a fancy way of saying I audited lots of the big 5 contractors, making sure fighting against fraud, waste, and abuse and corruption, and, making sure that there's transparency in our government. That was my job. Now a significant portion of my time was spent walking around to different people's offices, talking and figuring out ways to get things done, helping implement processes that were effective, efficient. That's what I will do in Congress. I'll go visit those cabinet secretaries and try and steer funds to our district to make sure that our voices are being heard, because they're not being heard right now. And we don't have a representative who's trying to bring the people of Northwest Georgia closer to their government so that their needs can be addressed. That's the job. That's how I see it. Of course, there's the legislative portion that's important to the rest of the country. And, I will always vote my conscience, always. But I see the job as getting out there, pounding the pavement for the people of Northwest Georgia and getting the job done.
Yeah. Marcus, what is, you've been around the world, you've done a ton of things. What has been of surprise to you of when it comes to running for office? The first time you jump into this and get involved and do this thing, what's taken you by surprise? What is what you didn't expect? Take our listeners, our viewers in behind, pull the curtain back a little bit. What's it really like to do this?
Well, when I first jumped in this thing, as you guys said, I haven't ever run for elected office before. My career was serving the country. My plan was to, 10 years from now, I was going to retire.
Yeah.
From public service, and go learn how to play
area
golf.
there in Alabama, and there's a couple of nice little places down along the coast.
Learn how to play golf or something like that, and just travel more. And as you said, I've been all over the world, 46 different countries, on 4 different continents. I've worked with all of our mission partners all over the world. I've done a lot of things, and at some point in time, you're like, okay, yeah, that's enough. But having seen what happened on January 6th, I knew, and I felt like God kept playing that John Lewis's last message in my head: stand up for the highest calling in your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. And I truly believe in our democracy. But, like I said, when I first joined this thing, it was like drinking water through a fire hose. I didn't know what I didn't know about running for office. I figured I'd go out, talk with people, which is my favorite part of the campaign, knock on a bunch of doors, which we do all the time. But there's so much more at play, raising money, for the campaign, because you have to be able to drive around the district and talk to people. And this is a huge geographic district, getting, involved with, other politicians who are, actually doing the work now, talking and listening. So I've learned a lot over the course of this last year that we've been in this campaign, sitting down with local leaders, and one-on-ones with these people are really my favorite part of what I'm doing now, because I enjoy those interactions with people, even if they don't agree with me 100%, or I don't agree with their views 100%. I'm always willing to listen. I like to meet people where they are and have a conversation there. And I'll always negotiate in good faith. And I think that's something that, we've lost in our body politic now.
Mm-hmm.
There's the ability to negotiate in good faith and keep it on facts. What's
Yeah.
really, if I can say, what really, really surprises me is just the level of disinformation that's out there, and who's pushing it. That's more surprising and hurtful to a certain extent. But, I'm an optimist, but I'm always first a realist. But I know we can get better and we can be the best version of ourselves if we start working together, because it does take two strong parties who are both rooted in reality to get the job done for the American people.
Yeah. I've picked up four things in your the video and then our conversation here that seem fresh to me, especially for Democratic candidates to say. One is that poverty is temporary, that it happens to people and they experience it and then they can move through it. Sometimes we talk about it in charity terms or we talk about it in permanent terms. I also noticed, of course, from your biography that you're in the military. It's been unusual, a little better now that, people are Democratic candidates were in the military. You've referenced your own faith, which a lot of Democratic candidates don't feel as comfortable always doing in public settings. And then talking about that there's a personal touch to changing the system. Those feel like four unique characteristics of your campaign. Do those strike you? I mean, are those things that always roll around in your head? Is that part of your mission? Or how does that strike you to hear that?
Well, it's just who I am. I mean, I can't ignore who I am as a person. And many people in this district are like me. This is a huge veteran community. I mean, we have huge, which is why veteran issues are, top my priority. We have poverty in this district, and it needs to be addressed seriously. I've been there, I got through it, and I don't want to see any children go through the same thing that I went through. I know how hard that was and how difficult it was to get through that. And, fortunately for me, I had some good people there who were helping me out, as a child, talking with me and getting me through those things. And we got on the other side of it. I want to see that same thing for a lot of kids in our district who are facing poverty right now. I want to help in any way I can. And I know, this is also a large Christian community and these people care. Northwest Georgia. And here's the thing I try to explain to people when I'm talking to them about our district. These are kind, generous, and caring people, regardless of what you may think of our district because of who we sent to Washington. She doesn't represent us. It's not who we are. Yeah, while some of the things she say may sound good to some people, I want you to understand that that's a minority of the people. It's not who the people of Northwest Georgia are. We got to stop treating each other like enemies simply because we have a different political view. We can talk through those, and I'm willing to have those tough conversations because I have them every day.
Yeah, you seem like you're in a district that's going to require, for you to win, people who have voted for Republicans in the past, or maybe even typically vote for Republicans, are going to need to vote for you. You're not in a situation where turnout of the people who normally vote for you would be sufficient, who would normally vote for a Democrat is sufficient. Is that right? And if so, how's it going? And what's the current scene on watching people say, well, I don't normally vote for a Democrat, but I'd vote for Marcus. That's is that happening? And how's it going?
Here's the reality of the situation on the ground. And I can tell you this confidently. There's about 40% of the GOP here in this district who are embarrassed by Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's a significant number.
Wow.
Yes, there may be about 1/3 of the district who's with her, but we don't need all of the Republicans to vote for me here in Georgia. The district got a lot bluer during redistricting. I want people to understand this isn't a hopeless race. We can and will win this district.
Yeah. So this isn't a Dumb and Dumber moment. What you're saying. So what you're saying is we've got a chance. There really is a chance. Yeah. The situation has changed. And look, we've noticed this so often that sometimes it's just wash, rinse, repeat. That whoever the party member is that's running is going to win, Democrat, Republican, whatever. But then there's places where the candidate matters. And it seems like that's your situation where who it is actually makes a difference. If people want to help you and they don't live in your district. Now, I'm sure that's a sensitive issue because you actually have a district disproportionately affected by money coming from people outside the district. That's how Marjorie Taylor Greene raises her money. That's how she acts in the world, right? She's doing and have lots of opinions. So I'm sure there are people around your district that are like, I wish everybody else in the country would just leave us alone and let us make our own decisions around here for what we want to do. But if there are people who say, hey, I'm really inspired by this campaign, I want to be part of it. Are you comfortable with that? Do you want that kind of engagement? And what could people do to be part of it with you?
Absolutely. You know, we have volunteers who come on and phone bank. We have people who come out and knock doors for us. That's mostly in the district. Actually, there's a lot of people who come from other districts to help knock doors as well. But, you know, if you can go to www.marcusforgeorgia, all spelled out.com, it's right behind me here on the screen. You know, we have volunteers who come in and do phone banking for us, send text messages for us. They can write postcards and letters for us. You know, go on our website, sign up to volunteer for anything that you want to do to help our campaign. Even if you just want to donate, that helps as well. I assure you, Marjorie Taylor Greene is raising the vast majority of her funds from outside of the district. But here's the thing. We beat Marjorie Taylor Greene in fundraising last quarter because there are a lot of people who want to see her type of dangerous out of country. And let's remember, Congress does belong to everybody. But I'm going to work for the people of Northwest Georgia. I would go to Washington to represent them and the needs of this district. We need bridges. We need rural broadband. We need infrastructure dollars to repair our roads. These are the things that are important to Northwest Georgia. Housing. I mean, people talk about affordable housing with me every day when I'm out on the doors. That's become a huge issue in our district. People talk about inflation and the price of, you know, groceries nowadays. You know, unemployment's down to 3% now, but inflation's taking a hit on people's or making a hit on people's paychecks. They're feeling that in their pockets and in their everyday lives. You know, we can do things about that. And as a person with a background in logistics, you know, I could provide leadership through guidance and oversight on, you know, some of those bottlenecks that we're seeing in our supply chain system because I understand these issues. I'd be able to help there.
Yeah.
As well.
So, you know, Marcus, let me, I'd like to just kind of put an exclamation point on, you know, the importance of folks supporting your campaign. You know, the conventional wisdom used to be that, you know, just an election cycle or two ago, the conventional wisdom was you needed $1 million to win a congressional race. Like that was, you had to fund, like that was the goal.
Right.
Marjorie Taylor Greene has raised, you know, I think at this point over $7 million and has, you know, half of that still on hand. You know, the arms race of being able to compete in a congressional race is just astronomical and has has far outpaced our increasing inflation rates. You know, it's just crazy. And so you have done an amazing job of raising money as a first-time candidate. You know, you have far outpaced anybody else who's in the race, and you know, you're doing an amazing job, and even pulling ahead of Marjorie Taylor Greene in the last quarter. She still has so much money on hand. You need people's help to be able to compete. Like this is a really important race for all of us around the country. So I want a shameless plug and shill for you here that, like, folks, we need you. Marcus doesn't need you. We all need you to go to marcusforgeorgia.com and make a donation, because whatever you can, because this is a tremendously important race, and he is running not just against a terrible congressperson, but a well-funded terrible congressperson.
She is well-funded. She does have a huge war chest. And, you know, it's about being able to communicate, because they're going to communicate a bunch of disinformation and misinformation and lies, quite frankly. We're going to have to be able to push back against that.
Yeah.
That's what those dollars are used for. Other than just getting out and talking with people here in the district, we have to be able to communicate, because that machine's going to ramp up, I guarantee you. and the lies will start flying. Actually, they already have. So that's
and the lies in this case, Marcus, are not going to be bolstering Marjorie Taylor Greene's successes. They're not going to over exaggerate what she's done because that's not her thing. They're going to attack you, I'm guessing. How are they going to attack you? Do you know already? Do you know what line they're going to take? Is it going to be the typical line? Are you seeing hints already about what they're going to say about you?
Oh, it's going to be some of the typical stuff, and then they're going to come with, just out and out lies. But it's going to be hard to paint me as a socialist.
I was going to say you don't really strike.
I mean, pretty hard to do that, but guess what? They're going to try anyway. So.
Yeah.
Well, look, I would strongly encourage you to, if you can, to recreate Senator Warnock's, I hate puppies ad, and get out in front of that, because that was just fantastic.
Yeah, we played with that a little bit with my 3-legged dog. So
yeah,
it was a fun.
And in addition to this work that we do, we get out and we run events in districts, and we'd love to come and to support you and what you're doing, and to run an event and bring the people who would pay attention to us and get them around. And recruit them up. So we're really thrilled you're with us today, but we'd also love to see you in district and to give some days and hours on the ground with some other people from around the country that want to do that kind of help as well. So if you'd be open to that, we'd love to load up our caravans and come down and give some help this summer and fall.
You're always welcome in Northwest Georgia.
That's good to hear. Good.
Beautiful place. The people are warm and friendly, and you'd love them.
Great. Well, hey, we're really proud of this candidacy, and think that it's super important. We'll do all that we can to support it, and hope that other people go there as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks, Marcus, for being with us.
Thanks.
Thank you guys for having me.
You bet. Wow. Just great.
Our regular listeners and viewers, I hope you're tracking here with, we had Dr. Annie last week and Marcus this week. There are some remarkable people running to, you probably think at times like there's crazy people in DC. Yeah. And we could replace them with some really fantastic human beings. And Marcus is one of them. And we've got several more that are lined up to be on the show with us over the coming weeks. There are some amazing people out there, and it's so encouraging.
Yeah, really, really. I mean, great pedigrees, highly qualified, great temperaments. It's just, I think Marcus is
good human beings.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think he's a real star. Boy, it would be so good for this country to wash, rinse, and replace all this. Repeal and replace Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yep.
How about that? All right.
I have a T-shirt that says "Repeal and Replace Congress."
That's right. Hey, Dan, Mike Dufresne is asking for a little comment from you.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Thanks for the shout out. I'll just put that up.
There you go.
On the screen for all to see.
I tried to get to it before you just popped it up there while Rob and I were doing salutations. Another great day. Great candidates. Thanks to all the people who are on. Mike, Barbara, Jim, George,
Gloria.
What else are you seeing? Dave,
Peggy,
Stephen, Tanya. Yeah. Thanks for everyone for hanging out in the chat.
Jim, did we hit Jim?
Yeah, we appreciate you. We'll be back. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we're talking with Jana Reese. We do this Faith Leader Day. Jana is a convert to Mormonism, and is one of the great voices trying to make changes inside of Mormonism to a more progressive, inclusive, and common good expression. So can't wait to talk to her. So we'll be on tomorrow. Anything else from you, Rob? Anything, Dan?
No.
Head to marcusforgeorgia.com.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to get to Northwest Georgia. And
I can't wait for him to be in Congress.
Let's go.
Oh, baby. Hey, so stay on our email list. If you're not already on our email list, get on it. Go to votecommon.good.com, get on so you can find out when we're going. And maybe you want to join us, all those people. Come, if you're like, I'd love to go help Marcus, but how am I going to do that? Well, I don't know. Watch us when we go, and then come when we go. That's a perfect time.
Yeah.
You have friends there already. All right. Is that good?
great.
See you all tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Peace out.